Welcome to the Porn Reboot podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Emezi, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode.
We're going to be doing something a little fun today. I'm going to be rating some pornography addiction recovery trends. I actually shot a video on this a few days ago, and some of you might have heard of some of these approaches. Some of you might have applied them in your life, and you might be curious as to whether they are effective. You might be confused as to whether they work or not, and some of you might feel that you're wasting time. The purpose of this is just to give my subjective opinion, to probably save you from wasting time and to point you in the right direction, which is not necessarily the porn reboot system. It's very simple. The scale is on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being that I highly recommend it, or anything close to 10, I highly recommend it. Not just based on my personal opinion, based on my professional opinion, and the feedback that I have gotten from thousands of clients that I've worked with over the years. We've had clients who have used some of these approaches concurrently as they went through the porn reboot system. We have had some who used them and didn't find them to be beneficial or shared the pros and cons. We've even had some people who got to a certain stage of their reboot and took principles from the others, applied it to their life, and did very well. And finally, just to be absolutely transparent, I've also had a very small handful of men who have left our program in the early stages because they didn't feel it was a good fit for them. And years later, they send me a message. They're like, "Hey, JK, I see you out there. I see you doing well. I just wanted to thank you for, everything I gained from your program. But I also wanted to let you know that it wasn't your program that took me all the way. It was this other approach." So my intention is to make this as fair as possible, as fair as a subjective opinion can go anyway. So let's jump into it. The first one is NoFap. I give NoFap a solid 5 over 10. And here's context. NoFap started in 2011 by Alexander Rhodes, which was a year before I actually began anonymously blogging about my out-of-control behavior. I was already rebooted at this point, but the point I'm trying to make is that I'm very familiar with the trajectory of NoFap's growth into the cultural phenomenon that it has been over the past couple of years. I think it's dying down a little bit. NoFap was never really a system. It was more of a mishmash of whatever information was out there, much like I had to do. I had to go around getting all sorts of information to help me end my behavior because therapy couldn't do it, 12 steps couldn't do it, willpower couldn't do it. But the one thing that NoFap did, which was very useful, was that it brought everybody around a central idea. And the reason I give it the 5 is because NoFap is best when it becomes the gateway approach to learning about other systems. I also have to give my kudos to NoFap because a lot of people became aware of rebooting thanks to the growth of NoFap. They had other people mention me. They had people say, "Hey, go check out JK and the porn reboot system. It's a little bit more organized. It has some structure to it. If you're not into using willpower, he's the guy to go to," all that good stuff. So definitely helped in our growth. But it is best only if it leads you to a system that works for you, a system that is predictable, a system that is logical, a system that provides reliable results for you. The second is filters, any sort of filter. There are a lot out there. There's Covenant Eyes. There's a lot of newer stuff that's out there. I give filters 4 over 10. Not because filters are not effective. I think filters are very powerful, but filters are only a temporary deterrent, even if filters have been on your devices for years. I have seen firsthand men put filters on their devices and completely stop their behavior. They stopped masturbating. They stopped viewing pornography. They even stopped edging for years. But one of the most damaging things I've seen? The most damaged men I have seen are men who relied only on the filter to take it off and 2 years, 3 years, or a year later relapse. And they relapse as if nothing changed. The devastation that this can cause to a man can be quite traumatic. And again, I have seen this happen firsthand. All this has done for me is reinforce the fact that you are the best deterrent. The best deterrent is in between your ears. filters are a wonderful tool, but please do not be seduced by the freedom that you feel when you put a filter on your device. I have had men swear to me, they were like, listen, filters. JK, the answer is filters. Everything else you're saying is just complicated. You're trying to make something that's so simple complicated. Men just need to put a filter on their devices, their brain rewires, and they can move on with their life. And this violates one very important fact, that pornography is a symptom of something deeper. And they stop doing the work. When you put on a filter, you do not identify what your actual triggers are. You begin to assume that your triggers are actually the things that you see on these devices. You neglect to realize that your triggers are also other things like stress. There are things like strong emotions. There are things like unresolved emotional issues. And what you forget is that while you might not be viewing pornography, you are simply using other behaviors to medicate these strong emotions, this stress, and other issues in your life. So effective, but temporary, 4/10. The next one is rehab, whether it's inpatient or outpatient. I'm going to have to give rehab for pornography addiction specifically a 2/10. And here's the reason why. Firstly, rehab was not designed for pornography addiction. It was designed for substance abuse. Your substance was readily available all around you in a certain environment. One of the beautiful things about rehab for substance abuse, in some cases, it's even a 10/10. But when it comes to something like pornography addiction or even sexual addiction, you are not being isolated from the thing that leads to that behavior. In many cases, you are not even isolated from the environment. What most people don't realize is that sometimes your environment is in your head. I'll say it again. Sometimes your mental environment and your mental makeup is the real problem. But that's not even the main issue. The main issue is that the chemicals that you are avoiding, the endogenous opiates in your brain, the dopamine, the adrenaline, everything that you are craving, well, being in a rehab doesn't keep you away from those things. They are right there in your head. The final thing about rehab is that rehab is a breeding ground for what I call the religion of recovery. Things like 12 steps, one day at a time, addiction being a disease, the disease model of addiction, the genetic belief that, this is something that is within your genes. A lot of these archaic beliefs, they die in the real world, but they are kept alive in these institutions. And that is how these institutions survive. These institutions rely on insurance payouts to pay their overhead, to put them in all these different beautiful locations. They need to keep the beds full. And guess what? Insurance is not going to pay out unless you are using the traditional and archaic methodologies. If we were to start a physical location, like where you could come in and you could hang out with us, and it would be in some beautiful location, and we'd do therapy and yoga, and you'd meditate with me in the mornings, and we'd hit the gym, and we'd all have like a healthy meal, and Coach Seamus would take us through all these biohacking protocols. Listen, as nice and cool as that sounds, and I fantasize about that sometimes, we wouldn't be able to afford it because insurance would not cover that. Your insurance would not cover the $40,000 a month. Yes, there are places that are $40,000 to $80,000 a month to go to if you have an addictive disorder. But you're not going to get that for any sexually compulsive disorder. And so even though these rehabs know that their approaches are not the most effective, they're still going to sell it that way. And because they already existed, all they needed to do was, once they realized, pornography addiction is a thing, just started running ads for it. You come in and you have people who have no experience with dealing with people who have pornography addiction, simply plugging you into a substance abuse model. 2/10. Expensive and breeding grounds for the worst recovery mindsets and beliefs. The next is dumb phones. A dumb phone is a phone that basically doesn't have a browser. Now, I will actually give dumb phones 5/10. You're like, what, JK? You gave filters a 4/10, but you're giving dumb phones like a 5/10? Yes, because filters can be bypassed and you can access the internet with them. A dumb phone does not have a browser on it. A good dumb phone anyway. A true dumb phone. No browser. No ability to do that. It is effective, but it's a 5 because it is also temporary. Really, it gains most of the points because of the lack of social media or your ability to access anything that could trigger you. The next is cold showers. I give cold showers a 1. Hey, I'm a big fan of cold therapy, cold exposure therapy. I literally have a new cold plunge that is downstairs waiting to be unboxed, and I need to do it or else my girl is going to start complaining that the big ass box is blocking the landing of the stairs. So I'm a big fan of it, but I'd be lying if I said that cold showers had anything to do with ending my compulsive behavior with pornography. It didn't. Journaling and gratitude exercises. All right, this one's going to get 2 ratings. I give it a 3/10 in general. And that's because on its own, I think it's a wonderful tool for grounding yourself. And by grounding yourself, it means bringing yourself out of a state of rumination, overthinking, and being overwhelmed. Because then you generate appreciation for the things you actually have in life. It also is powerful when it comes to raising awareness. However, the reality is journaling and gratitude do not work unless they are attached to a system. Why? Because when they are attached to a system, they are more likely to become habits and eventually a part of your lifestyle. Now, if you journal and express gratitude with excellence, you can get yourself to a 5/10. It is solid, but it is not going to help you stop your out of control behavior. It will raise your awareness and you will feel much better going through your day. But I have also journaled and I've also been grateful and I have also relapsed many times right after doing so. Shit. I've even been triggered while I was journaling. All right, the next one is accountability partners and support groups. I give this a 10/10. Especially if it gets the one more point, I'd give it a 9/10, but I give it a 10/10. Gets that extra point if it is not based in a 12-step philosophy. Listen, human connection. It's often said that the opposite of addiction is connection. And I believe in accountability. I'm a big fan of accountability. In fact, this evening, like 2 hours before this call, I was in my accountability group with a group of men, and it was wonderful. We talked about life. We talked about our wins. We talked about our business. We talked about our problems. We helped each other. And it was great because I've had a very busy time recently. It's amazing. Even like years later, this is what, 14 years later, about 14 years later, I still love accountability. So it brings you out of isolation. It gives you encouragement. It gives you visibility. It gives you focus. And most importantly, you get live examples of men ending their behavior. Again, it's best without any recovery, quote unquote, religion that talks about everything day by day. And if you relapse, you got to start from the beginning. And it's ruled by shame. And because of that, you lie when you show up. Like, listen, accountability partners and support groups are already hard and challenging enough without adding all these crazy rules to them. Just be human, just be vulnerable. And if it's run by a group of men who are just open and vulnerable themselves and a good example, it's even better wherever you find it. I think we have an amazing accountability system and support groups, but I also know there are really awesome ones out there as well. The next one that was sent to me was fasting. I give it a 1. Fasting is great. I intermittent fast all the time. It helps with cravings, but it is not effective for pornography addiction in the long run. Next is prayer. I give prayer a 5. Prayer is good. Prayer is wonderful. Prayer can connect you to the divine. Prayer can increase your self-awareness. Prayer can even improve your self-image. Sometimes magical things can happen with prayer. But without being backed by action, it doesn't do much. And the sad thing about prayer, yes, I'm going to say something sad about prayer. It's more about the sad thing about the way humans interpret prayer is that it is such a powerful thing, such a deep thing, that sometimes we have a tendency to just take it for granted. You pray, you fellowship with others, you feel really good, you feel connected. Sometimes you even see proof of some of the things, the internal qualities that you have prayed for coming to fruition. And that fools you into thinking that you need to stop your action. Human beings have an unfortunate tendency to do this all the time. I pray, even though I'm not a religious person. But I will say this much. If you're going to pray, please do not pray for material things. Please do not pray to be free of pornography. Please do not make all these promises to God. Pray instead to have the strength when you are dealing with adversity to overcome it. Pray to have the wisdom. Pray to have the courage, which means that in spite of your fear, pray that you will still be able to move forward. That is the way that prayer is the most powerful and realistic. The next one that was thrown in front of me was an AI counselor. So this one, I wasn't going to comment on this one, but I actually know there are a lot of AI counselors out there. There are a lot of apps that use these tools. As a matter of fact, recently our team downloaded a whole bunch of different apps to test them out. And one of the feedback I got is that most of the apps that are using quote unquote AI counselors are simply connected to ChatGPT. They're just a fancy front, and it seems as it's given a name. It seems like it's unique. And because they have conditioned you to feel that, oh, it's the front end of this thing is really different, you have no idea that it's simply running ChatGPT on the back end. At this point in time, I give AI a 2. Now, we actually have a JK Reboot AI, and it's at rewireyourdesire.net/chat. I keep forgetting we even have it. We don't promote it or anything like that, but if you click on that, you'll be able to access it. This one, however, is hosted on our own server, and all it has is responses that I would actually give, because the only thing on there is about, I would say, 8 to 9 years worth of my podcasts, of recordings, of group calls and group sessions with clients. Again, with clients, when I say it's group calls from like the implementation program, webinars and workshops I've done, all my YouTube videos, all my everything, all the emails I ever sent. You all know I send a lot of emails. Everything is in there, and it's all in my voice because I created all of those things from my own experience and from experience coaching clients. So I know it's still learning. I know it learns every day. Once in a while, I'll get some email that tells me it's still doing it. So even as I speak right now, all of that is going to be uploaded to the server. So if you want to chat with the AI version of me, hey, go for it. Ask it questions. Aside from that, I give it a 2. I give AI counselors a 2. Glorified content aggregator. In the recovery space, in the rebooting space, in anything that has to do with compulsive behavior, I think that it is straight up dangerous. Therapy, specifically EMDR, REBT, rational emotive behavioral therapy, and CBT, I give those particular types of therapy a 9. For those who experience trauma as part of their compulsive behavior, or their compulsive behavior is trauma-induced, a skilled therapist wielding the CBT tools, I've seen some excellent results. They can deliver some excellent results. I will say it is rare to find one who can deliver using those skills. Another form of therapy, if you could call it that, would be internal family systems and parts work. This is something that our very own trauma reboot coach, Dr. Jessica Eastman, is an expert in. I have seen her do some amazing transformational stuff. In fact, I will say that Dr. Eastman doing trauma reboot side by side with the porn reboot system is probably one of the best combos on the planet, if you can get into her sessions as well throughout our system. So our clients in the intensive program who get to the later stage of their reboot, because what happens in the later stage is a lot of those issues that you have been avoiding, they start coming up. A lot of your past trauma starts coming up, a lot of the issues you've not dealt with. And if you are going through the reboot system and you also have an expert that can help you decode this, oh my God, you fly through it. Now, it's not an easy process. It's definitely challenging, but fantastic stuff. Rational emotive behavioral therapy is one of the foundations of the porn reboot system as well. I would say a simple way to explain it is consider it a mix of Buddhism and Stoicism. And all of this was put together and refined for decades by Dr. Albert Ellis and some of his colleagues. Excellent stuff. It is pretty much the cure to depression. So if you find yourself feeling down, feeling sad, feeling depressed, feeling overwhelmed by your inability to control your behavior, and just the world is caving in on you and all of it centers or is related to your out of control behavior, then rational emotive behavioral therapy is the best stop. Now we have all these, including CBT, integrated into the porn reboot system. Next is talk therapy. And somebody just dropped it for me. Talk therapy is what I would consider to be therapy with no clear system. When you show in, the therapist is just not telling you what they're using. You just sit in there, you talk, they ask you questions, you talk, and you feel that you're doing therapy. It's just a mix of different modalities. There's no accountability. There is no specific tool that can help you control your urge in the moment. They might give you some homework to go back with or tools. And you go year after year after year because culturally you've been told that talking to a therapist is good. And that's true. It might feel good to talk to somebody, but a lot of times they're just an expensive friend that you get to talk to. And you realize that, hey, it has nothing to do with my behavior. I'm still slipping. I'm still relapsing. I'm still watching the porn. And I'm paying this person to show up every week or once a month and just tell them about it. And they ask me, well, how does that make you feel? And you're like, what the fuck? JK can tell me how it makes me feel by just listening to his podcast. I give talk therapy a 0 when it comes to controlling your out of control sexual behavior. The next is redirection approach or distraction approach. This is like stuff like take a cold shower, go out for a run, do some push-ups, put your attention on something else. I know it feels very effective in the moment. In the short term, you're just like, this is some good stuff. Like, I was able to beat my urge. But it's going to come around and catch you later. You have to face the urge. You have to become aware of it. You cannot keep running away from your problem. Your brain will not rewire just because you distracted yourself. A day will come when you will not have enough willpower to distract yourself. A day will come when your brain will just say, you know what, fuck it. I know what you're doing. You're trying to distract me, and I'm done. We have a process within the porn reboot system, rather a principle called working with your brain instead of against your brain. Against your brain is distracting yourself. It's running away from the problem. Your brain knows. It's like, fine, I'll get you later. And it will. Working with your brain is accepting that there is an urge, there is a trigger, and becoming aware of it. Because let me tell you something about your mind, your brain, all of that works together synergistically. The moment that it is convinced that this is something that is not good for you, and it also understands why, it must understand why. Just knowing that it's not good for you is not enough. You already know pornography is not good for you. You know alcohol is not good for you. You know eating certain things are not good for you. But it doesn't care because you get a dopamine hit from it. You get some chemical release. No, the moment you understand where it comes from and why it happens, the moment that you can see beyond the chemical aspect of that is the moment you begin to be free. Human beings are amazing. You learn within the porn reboot system that we have the power to think about our thinking. But you are likely not even exercising this ability, this wonderful ability to think about your thinking. All you do is get engaged in your thinking. You give into your thinking. You identify with your thinking. You're like, oh, I think this, therefore I am. No, you're not. Just because you think that you should watch pornography and then you watch pornography all the time does not mean that you are a porn addict. Again, that might seem a little bit like you're just like, JK, what? What are you saying? The moment you start thinking about your thinking, you will understand a statement like that. But I don't want to go that route. We won't get into the philosophy of it. Next approach, next porn addiction recovery trend is just get a girlfriend. Oh my God. I love this one. This one, we see it in the comments everywhere. People just like, just get a girlfriend, bro. This is the most low IQ fucking answer I've ever heard. And no offense to you, brother. You may be sitting back there and you may have also thought, you know what? If I had a girl, if I had access to regular sex, why would I even need it? Dude, every single day, every day of my life, Monday through Sunday, 365 days a week, there is a man putting in an application and he is married and it has not stopped him from viewing pornography. Shit. There are men who have multiple mistresses and side babes and sugar babies and visit with escorts, and pornography still is the number one mistress in their life. It doesn't matter. You don't need to believe it or not. If you're sitting there, you're a virgin, you don't have access to sex. Nope. Getting into a relationship is not going to fix it. I give it a 1. Being in a relationship is wonderful, but in this context, it's a 1 over 10. All you're going to get is a hurt partner, and you're probably going to end up hurting yourself more, developing more guilt and shame. The next, this one was thrown at me, but people say this to us. People actually say this to us when they come in and they're interested in joining our program. And these are people who obviously are not allowed into the program, but ethical pornography, like softcore pornography. What if I just watch softcore pornography? -5 over 10. This is madness. It's crazy. Ethical pornography? Shit, we've even heard about feminist pornography. You won't believe that. I should write a book one day. And it's not even a book about ending your behavior with pornography. It's just a book about some of the crazy shit that people tell us for why they want to avoid doing the reboot work. And I'm sure you'd find it very entertaining. I should just start just podcast episodes just telling different stories. Of course, anonymous applicants. But no, brother, tapering down is not going to help you. There's nothing like vanilla pornography anymore. What? Everything is like rough and think about it, okay? I rebooted about 16, 17 years ago, and I've been coaching men for about 13, 14 years. And even back then, pornography was crazy rough. I couldn't find vanilla stuff anymore. I remember watching vanilla pornography, love making, music, a plot, and all that stuff when I was a kid. But think of 16 years ago, it was already rough. There was no vanilla stuff. So, and I got addicted off just to regular stuff. No, you can't taper down. Next is self-hypnosis. I'm biased to this one. I'm going to give it a 6. The reason I'm going to give it a 6 is because, like I said, I tried everything. I tried everything to end my behavior. And one of the things that I did try was actually self-hypnosis. I will say that I only give it a 6 because you should have if you have the right approach and if you work with a skilled practitioner, this can help. But again, this is not hypnosis. This is self-hypnosis, you hypnotizing yourself. I had to change my self-image, and a lot of the things I needed to do had to do with the unconscious mind and learning how to communicate with the unconscious mind, identifying some of the statements I was telling myself, some of the suggestions I was giving myself. And I needed to do this and learn how to do this as a skill to overcome a lot of my negative traits and a lot of my conditioning. It was only maybe about 2 years ago that, I don't know if I probably shared a video of it somewhere. I don't think I spoke about this on the podcast, but my mom was visiting and I had this storage unit for about 18 years. I was paying for this. And once in a while I would go in there like once every 4 years and look for something I needed and I would just close it. 80% of that storage unit was books. I've always been a voracious reader, and right now I can consume maybe about in a week, I can consume about 4 to 5 books, like cover to cover all the way till the end. And it was just filled with boxes of books. And she just got sick and tired of it. And one day I think she was bored visiting me for a couple of weeks. And she just said, JK, I'm going to go through your shit. And I was like, if you go through my stuff, I need you to do me one favor, because I remembered something. There were probably about 6 or 7 hard drives in there and old netbooks. I don't know if you guys remember those little netbooks, the precursors to laptops. And there were a lot of desktops. And I was like, you need to destroy every single netbook. You need to destroy every single hard drive. I love my mom because she knows my story. She took all those hard drives. She went to the place where they crushed that shit to powder. Mom sat there and she watched them crush every single one of those hard drives. Everything that could ever implicate me she made sure it was destroyed. I love her for that. But in those boxes, I was going through them and I found all the books that I was using to improve and change myself. God, there was some of the most crazy woo-woo stuff there. But I picked up a book on self-hypnosis, and as I looked how much I had thumbed through this book and underlined things, repeated stuff to myself, I suddenly realized, holy shit, I had actually worked on my self-image with different methodologies of self-hypnosis. As you go through the reboot process, you do certain things so many times. Like we have self-talk approaches. Sometimes you do these things. You repeat certain things to yourself thousands and thousands of times. It just becomes automatic that you just take it for granted. You take for granted the things that changed your life. There was a time I didn't even know how to communicate with other people. I would shut down after a few sentences to a stranger. Look at me now. It's crazy. It is crazy. And I did the work. I did not sit down with a therapist to work with me on those things. I read books. I would force myself to go out there and talk to people. I would have all these things I would write in my books over and over again, all these affirmations, all these mental exercises. The cool thing is, going through all of that only made me love the reboot system more. Because when I see what it has evolved into, I realize all of this was born of every single thing I obsessively did for over a decade to change my life. And I'm so thankful for all of those things. So all of them are part and parcel of the porn reboot system, but not in a complicated way. Everything was simplified. So I give self-hypnosis a 6. Bias towards it might not work for you. Some people try it and just think it's bullshit. Next is guided meditation. A guided meditation would be, listening to an app and having it guide you through meditation. I gave it a 6 when I first did this, but I'll go as far as to give it a 7 over 10. And this is because if it is done consistently, there's a great chance that it will lead to deeper awareness, and eventually it will lead to some form of mindfulness meditation or insight meditation, which again played a huge role in rewiring my brain. And it's also incorporated into the program in more systematic, simple ways that you can apply to your life. But if it leads you to the meditation path, the awareness, and here's the biggest thing that meditation does for you, it rewires your prefrontal cortex. It helps you to focus again. And the crazy thing is, eventually it starts having all these benefits like compassion, like caring. And I always used to wonder, how is it that sometimes I can be on the surface, just my frame can sometimes be very confident. Sometimes it can be even aggressive. It can seem even arrogant. Like, these are the things I hear from people. But, the interesting thing is, on the inside, like, I rarely feel those feelings. I rarely feel like a lingering anger towards people. I rarely feel a resentment towards people. On the inside, especially with people that I'm working with, when I'm working with brothers to help them end their behavior, all I want to do is serve. And it's one of the only places where I get to be that person. That's why I spend most of my life talking to men about their sexual behavior. But it's one of the few places where, I don't know how to explain it, there's no other thoughts. I was telling the Wednesday intensive group the other day that last week we were doing this session, that when I sit in front of it to do hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours of coaching with the group, my mind is only there. Like, I literally am almost unaware of anything else that's happening around me. And I thank meditation for that, because I can be the most ADHD person when I get off my calls with clients. But it is literally a spiritual experience to sit down and just be with brothers and just let everything flow. Let the healing flow, let the compassion flow. I might be getting too deep into it. That's not what the program is about all the time. Like, we actually have a system, but our system is best used in a non-robotic fashion. I always, the experience with therapists was like, these people are tired. They're just watching the clock. They're using some sort of playbook to work with me. When people, it's just like you can see them using the process. They're like, oh, well, what happened this time? And then what would you do if da-da-da-da-da happened? And it can be helpful, but in the long run, sometimes you're just showing up discombobulated, frustrated, filled with shame. You're just tired. You don't even believe in yourself anymore. You've lost your masculinity. And a fucking process and a person who talks like a robot is not going to help you. What you need is presence. What you need is connection. What you need is somebody who actually understands what you're saying. What you need is not somebody who's going to fucking talk at you, but somebody who is going to listen. And when they give any sort of feedback and ask a question, you can tell immediately, damn, this person has been where I am. Like, you know exactly how it feels, dude. You know exactly how this moment feels. And that's my job. My job is to be in that space so you know that I have lived it probably worse than you have. And at that moment in time, I mean, you have your accountability partners. At that moment in time, that's what you need. You need the realization that you're not alone in the world. And you can't do that by trying to fucking therapy somebody. Sorry, no offense to my therapist. I love you guys. I know some of you guys listen to this, but I also believe that a lot of you could do work with getting more mindful, especially when you're in front of men who put money down. A lot of times they did not put money down for you to just solve a problem. Yeah, sometimes they show up and they're like, solve my problem, and they're transactional. But most times, if you work with men long enough, I'm talking to my therapists and counselors now, they just need your fucking presence. They need you to actually listen to them, and they need you to hear them. And sometimes they need you to freaking appreciate them because nobody else in their life is appreciating them. They need you to be the one who listens and go like, you know what? Wait. Play that back. Oh no, you should be proud of yourself. That is crazy that you did that. Dude, you were going through all those emotions and you still had the presence of mind to do XYZ. Their kids don't see it. Their wife doesn't see it. Nobody at work sees it. Nobody understands the pressure that these men are under. And it is your job to be present enough to show it to them and give them that appreciation. And I say that because that is something that I needed for so many years, and I could not get it from anybody. I was not going to call my friends and ask them for it. I wasn't. This is the example that we have to be when we are in a space where we are doing the healing work, where we are creating the room for that healing work. It is a very high responsibility. Sorry, guys, I'm going off, but I'll roll it back, okay? Mindfulness and meditation is very, very powerful for both a practitioner who is supporting a man and both for the brother who is dealing with his out of control behavior. As somebody who has been on both sides, who has been addicted, who has been free, and who has made it his mission to support men, I can vouch for it. Okay. So 6/10 though for guided meditation, and I will give proper meditation that is without a guide that you've learned how to do on your own, maybe via a retreat, insight meditation, transcendental meditation, whatever sort of meditation. You sitting down and you giving it 45 minutes to an hour, I give it a 10/10. 12 steps or Sex Addicts Anonymous. I'm going to be fair. I'm going to be generous and give it a 7. And the reason why I give it a 7, because oftentimes it is the only thing that men have access to. Deep down, I would give it less, but I understand. It's the only thing you can do, and it has community. It has other human beings in it. It's just that the system is not that effective, but it is often a gateway to many things. Many of our clients who are rebooted started off in a 12-step program. I myself will admit that there are some aspects of our program that are borrowed from the 12-step methodology. I'll be the first to say that. But it doesn't change the fact that if you're using pure 12 steps, while it may keep you away from your behavior for years, I say yes, for years, you are going to be living what I call a gray or a black and white life, because it is just a lifestyle change. I'll say it again. It's a lifestyle change. It is not an identity change. Why? Because any man who has achieved quote unquote sobriety through the 12-step program, if you tell him to cross any of his boundaries, it's game over. It is game over for that brother. He cannot do it. It is game over internally, even if he crosses it physically. An identity change means that whatever it was that you were compulsive with no longer has an impact on your life. Zero impact on you could be exposed to pornography and you just walk away and go to bed like nothing happened. That's called an identity change. You could be exposed to pornography, and in my case, a lot of times I get emotional. When I say emotional, it doesn't mean that I'm going to get emotional and relapse. It means I'm just like I'm a human being, that I'm just like, why are you just showing me other people having sex? This shit doesn't even make sense to me. And then when you look at it, you start seeing, and obviously I live in the modern world. I have been exposed to pornography. Every single time it's been against my will, just somebody playing it, it's playing somewhere, it shows up on social media, stuff like that. And when it does, it's never memorable in the sense that, oh my God, well, it's shocking all the time, but it's like, what the fuck is happening? Like, it's so obvious that it is acted out. It is so obvious it is script. Sometimes it's so obvious that people are suffering. You're like, y'all are getting in front of a camera to do this shit? Like, what? Didn't make sense. And maybe you just don't get the way I see it, but I hope one day you get it. And so when I say emotional, it means it brings up emotions of confusion, sometimes of anger, sometimes of sadness. Again, none of these things are out of control. I can still operate, and you will still be able to operate in spite of your emotions that come up. They are healthy, they are fine, but you are no longer relapsing. That cannot be said of anybody who goes through a 12-step program. They're going to, I drank, relapse if you went through a 12-step program for alcohol recovery. So it's a 7, can get you for many years off this, but unless it segues into something else that is not a lifestyle that leads to identity change, don't fool yourself. People who are just like, oh, it's 20 years, it's 30 years. I don't care if you go to your grave. You went to your grave living a lifestyle, and you should be proud of that. I will applaud you. Last year, I talked about a gentleman that I met who was celebrating 50 years 50 years of sobriety, and I have an incredible amount of respect for him. But it does not change the fact that it is still a lifestyle, and anybody can be at risk of relapsing if they do not change their identity beyond the lifestyle. There are many more, but I'm just going to end it with one more. If there are more you want me to talk about and rate and give my opinion on, send me an email. Put podcast in the subject line, send it to jkemez@elevatedrecovery.org, and I'll definitely give you my feedback. But semen retention, monk mode, all these monkish shit, waste of time. 2 over 10, okay? Waste of time unless it somehow leads you to the route of a support group, unless it leads you to some sort of recovery coach, unless it leads you to some sort of system that also changes your self-image while helping you control your behavior and rewire your brain. But retaining your semen, okay, I'm not saying that it doesn't have benefits. Any man that actually has a functioning dick and balls, which is questionable for some of us because of PIED, but it's not gone forever. Have hope. We can help you. But any man who has a functioning dick and balls, who practices any form of retention, like I'm not going to masturbate, knows that the energy you feel is different. This is common sense. You're like, oh, it's been 7 days, it's been 20 days, it's been 30 days. You operate differently. But people take it and they make it something esoteric. There is some spiritual benefit to it. I'm a serious meditator, at least I consider myself a serious meditator. And I know that there are benefits to just not engaging in sexual activity for certain amounts of time. In fact, when I go for retreats, when I am meditating through certain periods of my life, I will fast. I will abstain from eating meat. I will eat a vegetarian diet. There is no fantasy, no sexual thoughts. I will not have sex with my girlfriend. None of those things will be happening. And I don't think too much about it or why. I just know that when I engage in those things, I'm able to progress on the spiritual path and make progress on that path much easier. Don't put too much thought into this unless you are choosing to go down a deeply spiritual route, and you're also choosing to step away from modern society and become a recluse, hermit, a monk, or spiritual guru of some sort. Aside from that, please stop wasting your time on this semen retention stuff. It is willpower based. It is peddled by a lot of grifters and just individuals who are repeating stuff that sounds cool, and marketers. Avoid it. 2 over 10. And that's my feedback, gentlemen. I am not going to rate the Porn Reboot system because that would be very biased. This is one of almost 700 episodes here. So I think if you feel it's beneficial, you feel it's beneficial. If not, it's cool. So I would love to know you guys' opinions. Feel free to shoot me an email. If not, I hope you've enjoyed this. On the subject of podcast episodes, it's been a very busy season for me. I've been missing in action for a little bit, but I'm back 4 to 5 times a week. Every week, you are going to hear me talking about your out of control behavior. And this year, actually, I'm going to be going very deep. I'm going to be going very deep into some of the things that are happening currently in the world with things like OnlyFans, sex work. We're going to be talking about dating and women and how pornography and the new sexual marketplace and things that are happening in society are just changing the way marriages work, how long marriages last, modern day relationships, and so many other things. So stay tuned. We've got a very different type of Porn Reboot podcast coming up over the next couple of months. Talk to you later.
I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out-of-control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, Your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally. You're about to lose your relationship. You want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving? Then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.